welcome to Brand Equity with me, Sonali Krishna. Today I have a very special show as I'm joined by some very illustrious gentlemen. I'm joined by, what I would call the heavyweights in India Inc. to discuss a very interesting subject. We're not going to discuss their bottom line, but we're going to discuss life at large, life at work, and the winning mantras or the winning strategies for ensuring a very illustrious career. We're going to be discussing Chandramouli Venkatesan's book called Catalyst. I'm joined by Anand Kripalu, who needs no introduction at all, the CEO of Diageo. I am joined also by Bharat Puri, the CEO of Pidilite, and next to him, of course, Shivakumar, former CEO of Pepsi, and now, of course, the big heavyweight in the Aditya Birla Group. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me today to discuss the winning mantras of work and life. I think I'm going to be the one who's going to benefit the most because, you're so close to me. But let me start with you, Mouli. I mean, you've had a great innings and continue to have great innings, in your corporate life. So what made you write this book and why this subject specifically?
No, I've been observing for a long time the topic on how people succeed. And as I studied people's career, I reached a simple conclusion. We have all heard the phrase, you get what you deserve. And what I saw was that the people who succeeded are those who have understood that to get more, you got to deserve more. And that's the basic premise I wanted to communicate. To say to win in your career, you got to focus on growing yourself as a professional, as a person. You got to focus on deserving more. I spent one chapter setting that up, and then 13 chapters on what you have to do to deserve more.
Right.
And that was just the inspiration I had.
But was the motivation to write this book really because of your experience, and your interaction with a lot of young people who probably seem confused to you about, the different career choices they make, how to conduct themselves in their career and all of that, which is why you thought it was important?
No, absolutely. As they say, you can connect the dots only looking backward.
Sure.
And one of the interesting cross-functional stints in my 25-year business and marketing life, I did 3 years of being the HR head for Cadbury India. And I suddenly found that a lot of the intuitive things that you have in your head about how people make decisions, how they think about their careers, I found principles for those things.
Okay.
And it was very frustrating at times as a leader and a manager to see people do so many mistakes in their careers. And when you try to explain to them that what you are doing is wrong, they are often not willing to believe it because they think this person is biased. This person is representing the organization, the business, or has their own interest.
Right. So one of the very interesting points in his book, which he ensured that I read, was that, it is experience does not equal time spent, right? So let me come to you. Anand, and tell me, do you think you agree with this? He says, 10 years of experience versus 15 years of experience doesn't mean that the experience, that the time spent actually equals to experience, because a lot of us who, are spending a lot of time at work and doing our work well are doing it really in an autopilot mode and not really, using the time that we spend in our careers to actually gain experience. Would you agree with that?
No, I agree completely, Sonali. And I have seen this at first hand in companies that I've worked for, where there are people who have actually spent 10, 15, sometimes 20 years doing the same job. The company kind of compensates them by giving them a designation change every couple of years and a salary change, and they actually think that they're growing.
Right.
And when then somebody else comes in with a new lens and says, all right, how do I need to structure this organization so that I have the right people who can drive the business,
right,
you suddenly find that many of these people become misfits. They just don't fit into the jobs and the grades that you want when you start measuring the impact that those jobs and grades should be delivering on the organization. And just to add to that, at the end of the day, it's really what you do with your time that determines whether you're learning or you're not learning, and you're becoming better or not becoming better. And what I have learned actually is that sometimes jobs that you least want to do, so we all think we know exactly what's best for us. And I must say, I have learned, again by connecting the dots looking back, that that is not true in my career.
Okay.
there are jobs that I least wanted to do that I was actually pushed into by people probably who had more wisdom and more gray hair than I had. And those jobs are the ones that made my career more than the regular jobs that I really wanted to do.
Okay.
Because those were outside my comfort zone and my learning curve was discontinuous rather than just incremental.
Sure, sure. You know, he also talks about the fact that, you know, in your foundation years, firstly, you know, the book is divided, your career is divided into two halves, the first half and the second half. So Mouli says in his book that the first half of your career, your foundation years, when you just begin your job, it is very important, your boss's role is very important, and it's better to have a really tough taskmaster as a boss, a tough boss, than a nice, caring boss, right? And I believe for the people who are viewing that Bharat was in fact, you know, Mauli's first boss. Did you have a tough boss? You were a tough boss, but did you have a tough boss? And do you think it's important?
I think it's important to have a boss who constantly raises the bar. A boss who constantly challenges you but also provides you a cushion where when you're about to fall, you know, it's not a hard fall. And I remember my first boss was another very systematic, very hardworking gentleman who believed that, you know, office should be 24/7. Now, it was fortunate I was a bachelor. My first posting was in UP. And what I love actually in this book, which I completely resonate with, is this whole thing of digging deep in the first half to succeed in the second.
Sure.
My first assignment was area manager UP. Early 80s, it was officially declared dacoit infested. Now here is this protected guy from an armed forces background. My parents are wondering, I mean, did you really go to this prestigious institute to take cans of paint to, you know, District Etawah and District Eta, which they only read about in the papers? But I completely resonate with the fact that that's really, you know, that's when you dig down deep. That's when you learn incredibly, because it's a completely different world. And I still say my first 3 to 5 years in sales is something which I still draw back upon. And a boss who kept challenging me and saying, listen, I mean, you know, if Menpuri is not doing the target, you better go there and see what he's doing. Don't tell me, don't talk to him on the phone. And to my mind, I agree with him. I think the two things we don't choose are our relatives and our bosses. But if we are lucky, at least in one of the two, you smile a lot more.
Right, right, right. Shiv, I want to come to you because I know you're a man who, you know, can give us a lot of insights. And I want to talk to you about specifically when, you know, Mouli in his book says there's a first half innings and there's a second half. And it's important to win in the second half, you know, to really be successful in your career. And you've broadly said, you know, a career is a 40-year span. And however you divide it, 18, 22, 2020, whatever. How would you look at the first half of one's career versus the second half, and what really is the difference, and how should one mold oneself?
Fair. So I completely agree with Mouli about the phasing of a career. You start and then you end in a particular way. I would say I would add a third dimension to it, which is, I think, life beyond work also. Okay. For example, if you take a career, you start assuming at 25, it's maybe you'll go on to 60, 70. Okay, so the first 15, 20 years, by and large, you need the company more than the company needs you, by and large.
Yeah.
You need the processes, you need the learning, you need the good bosses, etc. All that's right. In the second half, in some jobs, the company needs you more than you need them. Okay, that's a very big responsibility to shoulder. And it is those high moments when you deliver for the company when they need you that really propels you a little further in your career. And in the second half specifically, a lot of people make this mistake. They don't contribute. They are company men, but they're not industry men or society men. They don't contribute to the industry they belong to. They don't contribute to a wider world. As a result of which, when they suddenly turn 55 or 60, they say, I'm not getting the board jobs. I'm not getting the next phase of my life. So in the second half, while it's extremely important, okay, you know, that you are a senior manager, but you also have to contribute back in order to get back. And you're just not going to get something just because you've been CEO of a company. Sure. You're going to get something because you've contributed back to society. And that's the part I'd really like to add in this question of yours.
It's important to, you know, plan your career, plan your life, plan the companies you work for in your formative years, and so on and so forth. However, when all of you look back at your careers, do you think a lot of it was accidental and not so planned, or do you think it was very strategic? Because I find it difficult to fathom that it can be so strategic because most people, you know, get into their careers or their jobs as accidents, and correct me if I'm wrong.
So I think it is more of accidents than a kind of strategic plan for a career. Starting with the first job you get on campus.
Yeah.
I mean, in reality, it's a fish market on campus. And you might have your target on a particular company, but you will land up with another kind of company, maybe in the same sector if you're lucky, right? Sometimes people even change sectors. It's like when you get into engineering, you say, I want to become a computer scientist, and then you only get metallurgical engineering because that's your rank, and then you become a metallurgist through your career. So I think there's a lot of accidents that actually take place, and I think there is a bit of luck, right? But the luck is to do with two things, I think. One is, as long as you're working for companies that are fundamentally good and have good values, the probability is that you will work with good people and good bosses. And that ensures that you grow, because they, like Bharat and Molly said, they raise the bar, and sometimes they teach you in the nice way, sometimes they teach you the really hard way, right? I cannot forget that when I first came into marketing, you know, we had to write promotion proposals. So I wanted to give a soap free with the toothpaste or something of that kind, something as mundane as that.
Sure.
And those days we had to handwrite promotion proposals. I was made to rewrite a proposal 6 times, right, before my boss agreed to approve it. And every time he would put red ink marks on it, so you're starting all over again. You couldn't just edit and paste. But it set the bar, because, you know, I also believe that when something passes through your hands now, it has to have your stamp, right? It has to have your signature on it. So I think there is a lot that people have done which happens by accident and luck. But, you know, when you look back, you can connect it all together, and that's the beautiful part. Having a strategic plan for a career beyond a point, I think is futile.
But let me come to you, Shiv. So one part of his book talks about whether you should switch a job because it's a better pay and a better designation, as opposed to you know, sticking the
learning and fit.
Yeah, sticking to your current job simply because you know, it is you have more depth. You will learn more depth because you are training yourself in your foundation years. So it's important to finish that, then make that jump, and it will hold you in good stead in the long run. Correct? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, so linking both of these together, I personally believe that where you start, you have absolutely no control over. But where you end, you have a lot of control over it, as long as you're committed to it. A lot of people are not committed to where they want to end.
But do they know?
Yeah, I think they know. My sense is you have to prepare for a job as opposed to plan for it. So, you know, in the early days when I started, you want to be good at marketing. Okay, when I was working in Hindustan Lever in marketing, I never knew a company called Nokia existed.
Sure.
Okay, so you don't plan to say, oh, I'll get into technology, I'll get into this type of a company. It just happens. But as long as you're prepared for it, you say, look, I need to learn the fundamentals of marketing, I need to learn the fundamentals of general management, I need to learn the fundamentals of CEO, then by and large, barring bad luck, it will come your way. Because you are better prepared than anybody else for it.
Sure.
But on this journey, the mistake I've seen a number of people make, including my peers, is don't set a time frame to it. Don't say I want to be a VP by 40. Don't say I want to be a CEO by 40. You will fail. You will automatically fail. These are insufficient, you know, parameters to go with. The preparation is far more a sufficient parameter. I want this salary. I want this perks. You know, people chase the wrong things when they feel that they're getting somewhere. If you chase the right things, which is preparation of being a good leader, you will always get more breaks, and you'll always have more choices than, you know, anybody else who, you know, works with you.
Sure.
And just paraphrasing what he's saying, what he's calling a preparation, I say manage your career for learning.
Yeah, you said that.
Rather than earning.
Yes.
And if you manage your career for learning, the earning follows.
Yeah.
And it's a very simple model of what you manage for.
Sure.
And, you know, I keep telling youngsters, exactly, because obviously you go through many fellows with the amount of grey that we have in our hair. You've seen lots of the fellows. You just say two things. If you're still getting up in the morning, most days, you know, this old adage of do the job that you love. I mean, yes, if 5 out of 7 days you're getting out of bed excited to go to work, you're liking the people that you work with, and at the end of whatever, every 3, 6, 12 months, you feel you are a better person, you've learned, you're in the right place. The money, etc., the perks, everything will follow. You chase the wrong things, you start managing your career, you forget the job.
That's a great point which Bharat is making. A lot of people change jobs when they're 35 to 40 for money. And that money is 20,000 bucks, 50,000 bucks, 1 lakh rupees per month. The real money you make in your career is after 40. It's never before 40. Till 40, your income and your cost roughly match and you put away a bit.
Yeah.
The real savings, exponential part, happens after 40. If you don't have the patience to wait for that, you'll never get it.
Fair enough. If you look at the current generation right now and the young workforce that we have, you see that today, if you look at their CVs and they feel, very proud that they are job changers and their CV has, a lot of jobs every 2 years, every 3 years. They think it is important to switch a job because it puts them in better light. In the older generation, it was completely the opposite. You had to be in you probably start and retire in the same company. So the value systems have also pivoted. Cumulatively, because the cumulative experience here is just like so mammoth. So give me your sense. Anybody can take this.
I think there's nothing right about quitting a job. I think you got to be clear on the reasons why you quit. And that's, I think, the simple thing I like to say in Catalyst is to say you can quit if you're not experiencing enough learning or you're not experiencing a culture fit.
Okay.
And that can happen in 3 years, that can happen in 10 years.
Sure.
Yeah. Whenever you reach the point where you say, I'm not getting enough learning and I don't have a culture fit, it's fine to quit. But if you quit for any other reasons, where you're still learning and you have a culture fit, and you still end up quitting because, you feel there is something more alluring and attractive, that's where a lot of mistakes happen. So I don't say quitting is bad. Getting the reasons to quitting is what's important.
And if I can just build on that, and I think the truth, Sonali, is somewhere in the middle, right? I don't think it's about starting and retiring from the same company anymore, nor is it about jumping jobs every 2 years. When a CV comes to me, if I find somebody who's got 10 or 15 years experience and have done half a dozen or more jobs, I really feel that that person is more interested in their salary and designation than their learning and the value and the commitment they have to give back to the company they've worked for. So they're using the companies as stepping stones for their own end. And then when you come to the second half of your career and you don't have those experiences, you don't have that proof of having delivered something back to the organizations you're in, I think your career in the second half stalls very, very sharply.
One of the institutions in Asian Paints who built Asian was a gentleman called Mr. Chari. He's a legend there. He's recruited probably 15 generations of Asian Paints managers, and I was privileged to actually recruit with him. He would look at a resume, and if there were fellows who had switched 2 or 3 jobs, he would turn the resume and say, this is not for us. He doesn't know what he wants. And as I abstract back, I always say there are 2 kinds of career fellows. The rockets that go up like the Diwali rockets and come down equally fast. And the spaceships that stay up.
Sure.
All the spaceships that stay up are guys who batted out the tough times rather than quit the moment the tough times hit.
Right. Fair enough. Yeah.
So I have a contra view. Okay. I believe that staying in jobs was absolutely fine when companies were staying in the course.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Today, the average life of a company is 15 to 20 years. Your career is longer lifespan than the average life of a company today. Okay, that's the raw fact. Yeah. Okay, so I think the rules of career will be very different for the next 30 years. For example, I don't think people will ask the millennial today, okay, which company do you work for? People will ask him or her, what are you working on? Because that is more important than which company you work for in a digital world.
Yeah.
So for the first time in our history, we have digitization or automation or whatever you want to call it as a big force. The people who understand it most are the millennials. That has never happened in history ever, where when the IC engine came, the people who knew IC engine were not the largest population. Today we have that. So many CEOs have to come to terms with the fact that a millennial, okay, could be his son or daughter, but he is as wise as himself. It's a fundamental shift which I see And I think
You really think so?
I really think so. Millennials are extremely articulate, extremely smart. They know. Okay, and they say, look, I have to maximize my life, which is in the old days the company was our crutch. For them, technology and their skill or whatever is their crutch.
Actually, I don't know if you all saw a video recently that went viral on social media, and it was really about a millennial or a centennial, as you would define it, going for a tech interview.
Interview, yes.
Right?
I saw that.
A tech
yeah.
interview, and it's fantastic and telling of the times we live
I will
in.
ask Siri.
Amy, it says you are trained in technology. That's very good. Are you adept at Excel?
No.
PowerPoint?
No.
Publisher?
Not really.
Exactly in what area of technology are you proficient?
Snapchat, Pinterest, Instagram, Vine, Twitter. You know, the big ones.
I'm surprised you didn't say Facebook.
That's for old people, like my parents. That's funny.
Well, Amy, when you're working for me, you have to have those kind of research skills because I'll send you things for you to comb through and get the answers and send them to me. So for that, you've got to be really good at technology.
For stuff like that, no problem. I'll just ask Siri.
You'll just ask Siri?
You know, Siri tell me this, Siri find me that. We're all good at getting you the answers.
When the world's changing so quickly, especially in technology, you might start by thinking it's superficial, but there's enormous depth in each of those things. For example, take artificial intelligence as an example. There are a number of companies who substituted forecasting accuracy by human beings with artificial intelligence. It's fantastic. It's 10 points better. Okay, all of recruitment is done on the net today. You don't need face-to-face interviews. So things are changing very quickly. So there's a new body of knowledge in that new domain. That's all you need to look at. If you bring in your old baggage of knowledge saying this is the way it should work, in a future world, almost certainly it won't work. So I actually sympathize and empathize with the millennials saying that's their life. Maybe if I was starting out my career today, I might work in 17 companies in 30 years. But that's the way they are. But more important, let's ask the other question. Are companies truly committed to people? No, the answer is no.
That's true. That is true.
So then, the contract between an employee and an employer has fundamentally changed from the time we started our careers. Today the contract is very different. HR managers don't know their people. So if that is the nature of the thing, why would you expect an employee to say, I want to stay with Bharat? Forget it.
Yeah. I want to just, get into a last point before I close this, is about work-life balance, right? And you say that in your judgment, the impact of work on life is lesser than the impact of life on work. It's a very profound statement. Just explain that to me.
I mean, I firmly believe in it.
Okay.
I mean, we keep hyperventilating about work-life balance, but finally work-life balance is about a few hours more of life per week. When we finally crunch it down and say, what do we mean by work-life balance? I hope I could, get half an hour more every day for doing something else.
Sure.
But you see the other way impact and say, how does life impact work? It's the nature of persona I bring in every day. It's the nature of values I bring in every day. It's the nature of relationships I bring in every day. And I have absolutely no doubt that how you live your life is the greatest catalyst to how successful you can be at work. Yeah? And there are two catalysts from life which impact how successful you will be at work. One is, what are your hobbies? It's in sports, for example, that we learn how to lose, how to be a team player. Now, if somebody has played sports, the likelihood of how they are at work is going to be different from somebody who's never played a sport.
Okay.
Yeah. Two, the second thing of life which impacts you at work is your values. Yeah. And a lot of people at work have ambition. Yeah. But when you have ambition without values, you don't get followership. People say this person is pursuing ambition for their own selfish end.
I have learned that people don't look up to men or women who are supermen or superwomen, who are perfect, who know the answer to every question, who can never make a mistake. Real people don't look up to these artificial idols. Real people look up and follow real people. And real people have humility and they have vulnerability. And I have learned that you get more followership sometimes by saying, I made a mistake and I'm going to change this decision, Yeah, and everyone says, or saying, listen, I have a problem and I really don't know how we're going to fix it, even if you're the CEO of the company, and suddenly everybody rallies around you saying, listen, we want to help this guy solve that problem. So I think there's a lot of, how we've grown up and how we've, and our upbringing that we actually bring into the workplace.
Closing words?
I would say work-life balance, possibly the most discussed word and possibly wrongly discussed. Work-life balance, no company, no boss can give it to you. It is your personal choice. And I've said this to everybody over the last 15 years that I've been CEO, everybody has asked me this question. It is your choice. Nobody can give this to you. I can't compartmentalize your life as 40 work, 60 life. Not possible, okay? But in order to have a good work-life balance, I believe there are three things that you need to think about. One is your career, obviously. Because you work, you want to progress, you need a good life, whatever it is, okay? One is work. Second is health. And the third is what I call anchors. They could be family, they could be friends, they could be bosses, okay? The mistake a lot of us make, and I've seen people make, is we keep chasing the career, okay? You can't have a career, it's like 3 glass balls, okay? They're in play all the time. If the health ball drops, there's no career.
Yes.
If the emotional anchor, which is your family and your friends, drop, there's no career. The career ball can drop, you can always pick it up, but you cannot drop the other two. If you don't, if you recognize that, then you will have a reasonable work-life balance the way you defined it. Okay, the problem is we keep chasing the ball which can drop and can break.
Well, on that note, I hope that the viewers who are watching this have enjoyed this as much as I've enjoyed it. All the very best, Mauri. I hope that a lot of people buy Catalyst and become better managers of tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.